Welcome to the Write Your Own Story podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Leonidas, and the founder of the Write Your Own Story company. Girl, I can tell you right now, you are definitely enough. Here we value service, sisterhood, connection, laughter, and that super genuine, keep it real, tell you like it is honesty. My hope is at the end of each episode, you realize you can do whatever it is you dream about and that you are not alone with what you struggle with. I'm hoping that you are snapping and clapping and hell yes in your way through each one of these episodes. So if this tracks with you, let's get started. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome everyone back to the latest episode of the Write Your Own Story podcast. I am your host, Betsy Leonidas, and I am beyond thrilled to be here with a friend and someone who I deeply admire, Kathrine Nero. Kathrine, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. This is going to be fun. I'm excited.
Me too. And I was saying off camera, and I was telling a friend, I was like, I'm interviewing an interviewer. I was like, I better brush up, but I'm just going to be me. And I have admired your work from afar. And, we've gotten to work together on a few things, and you are just the ultimate professional and just
thank you.
A total badass. And
thank you. That's like the ultimate compliment there. Thank you.
I genuinely mean it. And I love what you do for the city. And I just love all the energy that you bring. So I'm so thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, before I get into reading your fancy bio, because you're a fancy woman, I love to start off every episode with really just setting an intention. And one of the things that I love about your story is, similar to many women, you have had a major pivot in your life. It happened to you, like many of us also have incurred. But what you have done a phenomenal job is setting the example is how to take a pivot that happens to you and make it happen for you. Yeah. So for everyone out there who is feeling in the season of pivot or, maybe has one coming, because life happens, just so you know, this is happening for you. Wouldn't you agree, Kathrine?
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I was just talking about this morning. I have what I like to call a therapy session with my best friend on the phone every single morning. We talk on the phone while we're both getting ready.
That's so cute.
It is. And it's helpful because our husbands are both very thankful because we get it off of our chest and not burden them with it. But what I was saying is, I'm coming up on the big pivot that happened in my life, and that was getting fired, publicly fired, shockingly fired. And we'll get into that whole story. But I said this morning, without even thinking through that I would be talking about this later on in the day, if I hadn't, that ended up being a great thing for me. It ended up being the best thing and the thing that I didn't know I needed. That's the way I always kind of phrase it, because I would still be there. I would still be probably complaining about the hours and, the industry that I was in and news has changed a bit. I still work in the peripheries of it. And so I can see it from that perspective. This was not warranted. It was not necessarily what I wanted at the time, but is what I needed.
I have goosebumps head to toe because I feel like that hits with so many women. It certainly hits me right square in the soul, where it is like, man, I didn't know I needed it, but it was truly a gift. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I have, I'm one of those people who, whether you're religious or just believe that the universe has in order, what it's going to give you what you need. I really think that things, not everything, but many things happen for a reason. And I know that happened because there were better things out there. And now 6 years later, it's mind-bogglingly better. So I'm thrilled at what has happened.
I cannot wait to dive more into this, because don't you feel like there's just been like this huge energetic shift in yourself? And it's like a wholer, more complete, more content version. Yeah. I can feel that energetically from you, that you are truly so happy, even in 2D through Zoom. I can absolutely tell that you are genuinely so happy to be where you are, which is what what everyone deserves and wants. Yeah. Okay. I'm putting a pin in this because I'm going to read your fancy bio because you're a big deal. Okay, ready? Kathrine Nero has been in front of a camera for more than half her life. She has 25 years experience in television and digital media as an award-winning news anchor, reporter, and host. Most of the time was spent anchoring sports and morning news in Cincinnati. Kathrine has done it all: television, radio, digital, sports, social media, print, and podcasting. Kathrine had worked for the same news station for 21 years and was the beloved host of Good Morning Tri-State when she was shockingly fired. It was public and out of the blue. And after drowning her sorrows in ice cream for about about a month, her words, not mine, but I'm here for it. She was ready to pick up the pen and write the chapter for her next life. Now you can find her all over town, living a beautiful, full, meaningful, fun life. She's the host of Get Real with Kathrine, all about asking uncomfortable questions. She is a VP at Game Day PR. She's a camera coach, media trainer, content creator, event host, sports reporter, and not to mention a 2-time breast cancer survivor. She shares her story boldly and bravely in effort to tell someone out there going through a transition, whether it's your choice or forced upon you, that it gets better, way better. Plus, after a decade of personally knowing and loving Kathrine, let me just tell you how much I admire how she shows up as a woman, as a professional, a community member, a survivor, and a mother. Kathrine, as I said, you are a queen, and thank you for being here.
Oh, that is so sweet. I'm going to
Well,
record that and just play that as I enter rooms from now
yeah,
on.
totally. Let me know if you need me to read it again, because
Yes,
it
yes,
takes me a
please.
few times. But yes, I would be happily to be your walk-on song.
That's awful. That's incredible. I love it.
Well, it is truly a reflection of all the great things that you're up to. And it was really fun to prepare for this interview,
Oh, thanks.
because I was just like, I felt like every single leaf I overturned on the internet was like, she does that too. She does that too. I mean, it was just an endless wealth of like really fun, interesting things. So I love to see how you've written this next chapter. As you may know, Cincinnati Children's Hospital is near and dear to my heart. If you don't, check out the episode, A Story of Miracles, to be inspired. Not only did they save my daughter's life, but they've saved countless lives each and every day through their exceptional care, tireless research, and so much more. I wanted to find a creative way to not only support women, but to give back to the hospital I hold so dear, and I think I've come up with something really fun and exciting. Okay, I'm just going to shoot you straight here. One of the ways for a podcast to make money is for people to subscribe, aka contribute money to support the show. As exciting as a new way to make money is for me, I wanted to turn this into an opportunity for others. So if you choose to subscribe for as little as $3 a month, where you can cancel at any time, you can submit a friend or a women-owned business to get a special shout out on the podcast, and half of your subscription money will go directly to Cincinnati Children's, supporting their needs in life-saving research and care. This feels amazing to me because everybody wins. Your bestie, your business, the hospital, and the show are all being supported through this effort. Click the support our show link in the show notes today to not only get a shout out, but to support the #1 pediatric hospital in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, so to kick us off, can you just tell us about the public firing? Like,
Yeah.
give us the rundown.
Yeah, so it happened a little over 6 years ago, and it's hard to believe it's been that
Yes.
long now. But what had happened was my co-anchor had gotten fired earlier in the year. I was working on a morning show here in Cincinnati, and I thought, well, I'm the only one left. I'm the only anchor left. My job is guaranteed, right?
Right. Totally.
No, no, that is not at all what happened. And there was one day I got called up to the general manager's office. And at the time, I didn't think anything about it because there'd been like a little kerfuffle in the newsroom and I had witnessed it. Like people had been yelling at each other. And I thought, oh, he's probably going to ask me about that.
Yeah.
But as I got up to his office, they were on the second floor and I was on the first. That last step up to his office, I remember thinking, what if I get fired? That's a weird thing to pop into my head. I hadn't thought about it. That had not been an inkling in my mind. And I remember thinking, just don't let them see you cry. Because when I get mad, I cry.
Oh, same.
It's
Same.
just like everything gets mushed up together and emotions start flowing. So I walk in, they fire me. And as I'm walking out, like the whole time, I'm just thinking, I'm not going to cry here. I will cry a lot in the parking lot, but not right here. And I think I made it out of the building before, the waterworks started. And yeah, this was, the thing about it was this was not just a loss of a job. This was a loss of a career because in television, first of all, there's 4 places in the entire city I can work with non-compete clauses and things like that. Essentially, I was going to be out of work, no question, for a year. I could not do the thing that I had wanted to do since I was in 5th grade. And that I had like kind of identified myself as that. I'm the girl on TV. Like I'm the morning show anchor. This is what I am and what I do. It kind of got meshed together and I hadn't thought about it. The way I wrote about it, I remember 1 year afterwards, I said it was like you're on a treadmill. You just do the same thing every day. This is what you do. This is what you do. You just keep doing it. You keep doing it. And a lot of us are in that position, right? We've been in a job we've maybe initially wanted, maybe it was what we needed a while back and it doesn't exactly fit, but you can't, like, it's still a good job and I'm making good money and I've got great benefits and it's 10 minutes from home or whatever it is.
Totally.
but I had not really given a thought to anything else. No other job had ever entered my mind except being a TV news reporter and anchor. So there I was, with no job, and essentially, knowing that that meant I was either going to have to move, and that's not going to happen. I'm
Yeah, you've got
entrenched in this
kids,
area.
right?
I love this area,
Yeah.
and my husband's from here. My kids grew up here. I'm not moving,
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, well, what now? And so you mentioned it. I had not. The reason I got into television news was the creativity part of it, the telling of the stories and the
Mhm.
writing and things like that. I really hadn't gotten to do that as much as I had hoped. Looking back on it now, I see that. If you'd asked me at the time, I would have said, "Oh, it's great." Yes, do I get up at 1:30 in the morning?
Oh
I
my
do.
god. Oh
Do
my
I get
god.
by on 5 hours of sleep? I do. But I'm like, this is what I wanted, right? This
Yeah.
is what I wanted. And that industry tells you, well, you're lucky to be here. And there's so many
Yes.
people who want this job and this and that. And so I thank television for all that it did for me. I thank it for making me who I am. But there I was without an opportunity, without a job, and didn't know what I was going to do next. And this is when, I think even if we think there's no pivot coming our way, there's nothing this we're happy, smooth sailing wherever we are in life. The relationships that we form throughout the years really create our next opportunities. And I know that's an easy thing to say. Just be nice to
Wait,
people.
but
Honestly,
that's so wise.
be nice to people. Like, be nice
Yeah.
to people. And my next two opportunities came from that. Came from people I worked with 20 years prior. I
Wow.
After leaving TV, I went to work with the Inquirer, and I know I interviewed you there
Yeah.
as well when we
Yeah, you
did.
did.
It was very similar to this. It was like
Yeah.
a Facebook Live interview situation where sometimes I was virtual like this, and sometimes I was in person. And I got to tell stories. The thing I loved about that was I was back to telling the stories, right? I was back to
Mhm.
talking to people who aren't going to make headlines. They're not going to make newscasts, right? That
Right.
somebody starting a business or
Yeah.
somebody who makes really cute cookies or whatever it is, like
Right.
they're interesting and I think people want to know about it, but it's not going to lead a newscast. So
Yeah.
I was not going to be able to do that in my former life.
Yeah.
In that life, I was able to not only tell those stories, but the Inquirer allowed me to write articles and write columns, and I loved it. I loved that process, and I loved getting back to the reason I got into journalism in the first place.
Yeah, I love that so much. It is again, one of those moments where it happens for you, right? You've
Mhm.
reconnected to your soul, like what you were gravitating towards in the fifth grade
Yes.
of all around. I love the creativity of the storytelling process. One question. So you get publicly fired, you make it out of the building, you burst into
Mhm.
tears, you go home, we grab our ice cream. But what I love is that you picked up your pen right away, your proverbial
Mhm.
pen, your computer, and
Yeah.
you took matters into your own hand and did a
Mhm.
post on social, kind of
Yeah.
claiming it yourself. What compelled you to do that?
Well, if I'm being frank, the story had gotten out, and which is
Mm,
interesting because I had only told, my friend and my husband. And I
yeah.
will let you draw the conclusions where the story might have
Yeah.
emerged from there. I know they
Okay.
didn't say anything.
Right. Right.
So it had gotten out, and I
Mm,
decided that I'm not going to let the headline be Kathrine Nero gets fired. Because then it
mm,
looks like, well, what did she do? Did
yeah.
she steal
Yeah.
something? Did she lie? Is she unethical? I am an Enneagram 3. We are not gonna you're not gonna question my work ethic, right? So
Mm-mm.
I decided, look, it's already out there. I wasn't planning on doing it. I'd gotten calls from other reporters saying, "Hey, can you comment on this?" And the answer was no, but I'm like, I better figure this out.
Yeah.
So I wrote about it. And strangely enough, the public part of that public firing ended up being the greatest thing for me, because I got to tell my side of the story. So many people, and you're evident of this, like the
Mhm.
people you've talked to, you yourself, so many people have been through a situation
Yeah.
where things happen to them, and look, I still to this moment do not know why I was fired. I know that every one of my employee reviews were exemplary. I know that I'd never been written up in at HR. I don't know. I can guess, but I don't know.
Right.
And so I knew that I hadn't done anything wrong in that capacity. So I wanted to make sure my part of the story was told. And what ended up happening, and I don't say this to be like, everybody followed me and was so excited and, were telling me how great I was. It's about people seeing that moment in themselves. They saw what happened to
Yes.
me and thought, wait a minute, number one, this could happen to me. And number two, this has happened to me, or maybe this has happened to me. And so they started to, like, the rallying was there.
Yeah. Was that scary to post, to put out there?
It was, and I am, I get very angry about things. Especially, and I look back on myself, especially, I think I've changed dramatically in the last 6 years. I got very angry about a lot of things.
Sure, rightfully
Just
so.
that's the emotion, and newsroom really fosters a lot of immediate emotion, right? Like the
Mm,
deadlines are hardcore, and like you better not miss them, and like you're yelling across the newsroom at somebody, even if it's like a friendly yelling across the newsroom, right?
right.
That's just the conversation is very loud and very like immediate, and like there's breaking news and you're scrambling, like everything is just feels kind
Like a
of like
fire drill.
slightly less than chaotic.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
So that's the way my emotions were, I think, as well. Also, getting by on 5 hours of sleep for 15 years probably
Yeah,
didn't help. It
right.
didn't help the old nerves.
Oh, that silly
But
nervous system.
yeah, silly nervous system. But anyway, so I found, like, I waited till I wasn't mad. The old rule, like, don't
Smart,
send the email when
smart.
you're mad.
Yeah.
I was still mad, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't immediate. Like, I wasn't like throwing down 4-letter words.
Yep.
Not publicly anyway.
Yeah.
But but anyway, it was scary to do because so many people had gone quietly, and
Mhm.
they could go quietly. Number one, I was already getting, again, the phone calls and the emails. Hey, what's going on? How about this? And I knew that it would not stop
Yeah.
because, at that time, the thing about being a morning news anchor is that it is a very intimate relationship with the viewer. You are there when they're getting their kids ready for school,
Yeah,
when they're in their pajamas and they're drinking their coffee. They're at their most vulnerable. They're just sitting back. You're part of their family in the mornings.
absolutely.
And I was grateful to be part of people's families for 15 years. And
Yeah.
people treated me like that. And so
Mm.
they would, send me pictures of their kids. And you know what I mean? Like, oh,
Aw.
your daughter's so big now, those sorts of things. And so I knew that I owed it to them to tell people what happened. And
Yeah.
so that post is how it started. And it was a kind of a snowball effect from there.
I absolutely love this for a bajillion reasons, but surfacing some of my favorites is that I want every woman listening to realize that, like, you have the power of that pen as
Mhm,
well. And that if something happens to you, I don't know about, so I can relate to this in terms of my divorce. I did not
mhm,
see, I mean, I was the one who filed and all the things, but I did not know that my marriage needed to end. And all of a sudden, it was very apparent that it did.
mhm,
And I felt like the rug had completely been pulled out from under me. And it, like, I had to own my side of the street and
mhm.
say my story in the most sort of like clean PC kids in mind kind of way possible,
Sure.
because as embarrassed as I was, I had to own my truth. And
Mhm.
every woman deserves the right. And I hope this encourages everyone listening to, if something happens to you, you have every right to speak up and use your voice and tell your truth. And it is so
Yes.
empowering. And to your point, and I had a similar situation, the outpour of support that you
Mhm.
were gifted from it, as well as the permission that you've given everyone reading that post to say, oh my God, I thought it was just me, but it's not me. Like, whatever their version of that story
Yeah.
is, that is truly the impetus behind this entire show. Is like, I would have these honest conversations after my divorce and people would be like, oh my God, me too. And you'd see this huge sigh of
Mm.
relief and all this weight melt off their shoulders for whatever it was that we were talking about. And I just want women to say more things like this out loud, because for some reason, women always think it's just me, but it's
Yeah.
not. Everyone has a story. And I'm so glad that you used your platform in such a productive way. One, in service of you, because you absolutely deserve to have your own voice. But two, it gives such permission for all these other women out there to be
Yeah.
like, I have a voice too. Oh,
I think and what you're doing in these conversations really helps that as well. And I think
thank
that
you.
that is a service because I think that people will poo-poo social media and it's the
Hmm.
devil and it does this and it does that. Let me tell you what else it does. It creates community and it creates a possibility
Yeah.
of connection where there wasn't.
Yeah.
And you realize, like, before social media, how it, like, I would have just slunk into the background and I don't know what I'd be doing right now.
Totally.
But social media happened, and the work that it takes to create an audience and to engage that audience helped in getting that message out. And most importantly, the message resonated with people. And,
Mhm.
whether it's, a pivot that is of your own design that you
Yes.
need to do and you just need a little kick in the pants to do it, or
Yeah.
it's been done to you, it could be minor, it could be major, but whatever it is, the other side, that the grass is generally greener. It may not immediately be, I'll be frank, but
Same.
eventually it is.
Yes. I did everyone hear that? The grass is greener. If that
It
pivot
is.
sits in your intuition or it happens to you, that door closed for a reason. Just
Mhm.
leave it closed and keep going. Okay, so let's fast forward because I also want to be mindful of time because I know you are a busy, busy woman. So let's fast forward to we're eating ice cream, we're crying, we've made our
Yeah.
post. How did you tell me about that process of sort of pulling it together? Because I will be completely frank, I was literally laying on my kitchen floor crying while my kids were at school because I was too exhausted to even sit up or stand. Like,
So, yeah, that's a great question, and I think that it was just a function of, like, I knew I had to do something.
yeah,
I'm busy because that's the person I need to
sure.
stay busy. So I
Hmm.
started writing. Again, I missed out on it, and I wrote stupid stuff. I just wrote. Sometimes it was about what I was going through, but a lot of times it was just like, oh, that's an interesting subject. Let me just see if I can write about it. And
Yeah.
then, so this, my firing happened in 2018. And then just a few months later, um, one of the folks from the Inquirer, Michael Perry, who again, I'd worked with on a high school football sideline 20 something years before.
Oh my
He had
gosh.
returned to the Inquirer, and they were creating a position where the Inquirer does this incredible journalism, and it's on their platforms, and it's on, on social media, but they wanted to kind of expand it and get it to a new audience. And at that point, the audience was on Facebook. And so they created this kind of position where I would talk about what the journalists at the Inquirer did. Like, hey, Sherry Coolidge did this incredible story on City Hall. Let me tell you all about it. And at first I thought, oh, I'm going to step in there. They're going to think I'm this TV person who wants all the spotlight and I'm stealing their ideas. 100% not the case. Could not have
Awesome.
been a better place to land. They were incredible people, just the best to work with. And they were happy that someone was taking their stuff and putting it on a platform where people were, to let people know, hey, go back to cincinnati.com and get
Yes.
information there.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a really nice symbiotic relationship. Like, they did so much of the work and I just shared it.
Yeah.
And then again, I worked and I wrote articles, wrote columns, those sorts of things. And that was just phenomenal, learning a little bit more about the city and writing about whatever I wanted. And it just that, the autonomy, they were just like, talk to whoever you want, do whatever you want. If you think it's a
Mhm.
good story, do it. And it's like, what? I get to do this? Like, this is a job and you're paying me? So it
Amazing.
was incredible. And then as I'm doing that, COVID hits. And what I realized on COVID is all of us did this, right? We hopped on our computers, we get online, we or on Zoom, and the terrible lighting and awful angles that I was seeing, I'm like, why is everybody so terrible at this? Like, I don't understand. Because in my mind, I had no transferable skills. Like, all I did, I would tell people, is I read what other people write on television.
Oh,
I was
stop.
doing that on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
With the Inquirer. I'm just talking about what other people are writing. And in my mind, that's not a skill. And then I realized, wait a minute, I have 20 something years of experience in, figuring out how to look good on TV. I can share
Yes.
this. And so I just started doing that, like this camera coaching bit. I, would do one-on-one interviews or conversations with people. And what I was finding at the time is, we're all kind of better at it now, but in that moment, the CEO and the intern are in the same little box on a screen on a Zoom meeting, right?
Yep.
And the CEO many times had not set up his or her own computer in years. They had an assistant to help them with
Yeah.
that.
Oh my
They're
gosh.
like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I'm doing what now? And so that's how it started. Interviewing or doing seminars for people doing virtual job interviews. Look, the way you look on camera has nothing to do with most people's jobs, but
Yeah.
it does show a certain sense of decorum and intellect and, pride in how you're going to present yourself. I always say
Absolutely.
that this version, this Zoom world that we're in right now is the new firm handshake. Instead of walking into a boardroom and shaking hands with somebody, it's how do you look on camera? And again, shouldn't matter. Your handshake
Right.
doesn't tell people what a great banker you're going to be, right? But it does, it's that first impression. And so I started
Absolutely.
teaching people this. So I'm like, hey, wait a minute, there may be something here in using the skills that I had and teaching them to other people who needed them at that moment.
I love that. So, what I'm taking from that is really like one, when you are feeling down and out, but you return to your true self, you're like, I am busy, I'm a worker, I'm a doer.
Hmm.
And you were like, what are my gifts? Your gift is
Right.
storytelling and writing. And I have found that to also be a common theme on this show is that the happiest people I talk to and the people who are living like this life that you can just literally
Hmm.
feel through the camera, they are doing what is an extension of who they are and the
Yes.
gifts that they have. And it
Yeah. I
is
mean, that's exactly
amazing.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's the happy medium of find the job or the experience or the hobby, whatever that you love, one that could make some money for you would be great
yes,
too.
please.
Like there's a
Mhm.
happy medium. And
And but
so
you did a great job too of creating it. You're like,
yeah,
well, who needs a camera coach? How many like camera coaches for Zoom and COVID are out there? None. And you're like, you know what I'm going to
none.
do?
Yeah,
I'm going to be bold enough to put myself out
yeah.
there. Ooh, speaking of, in my research, you did this really great post around imposter syndrome and sort of
Mm,
like the angst that you had felt a little bit about, maybe, and correct me
yes.
if I'm wrong, when
Yeah.
launching this type of business. And holy Lord, can I relate to that? Where you're like, I mean, I have been in marketing, advertising, strategy, storytelling my entire career. I too have known what I wanted to do since elementary school.
Mhm.
And as I go to launch this, I'm like, oh my God. Like, and I've been
Yeah,
in business at the biggest corporations in the entire world. And I'm like, how am I going to teach business? How are you going to teach business? Girl, you do business. But
that's
I
right.
could throw up some days because I'm so in my head. Can you tell us? I mean, you were literally on TV. You are the
Yeah,
morning person I'm sharing my coffee
yeah.
with. How are you nervous?
I have no idea. And it was not even nervous. You know what it was? It was like that voice in the back of your head, like, I wonder if people who I used to work with think this is stupid. And then I'm
I
like,
hear you.
what do I care? Like,
Yeah.
I talked to like 4 of those people. Like, I don't care what the other ones, think, right?
Yes.
And so that was part of it. But like, you're exactly right. You spent your entire life in business, your entire adult life in business. I
Mhm.
was on the air for 12,000 hours, and I'm like, do
Mhm.
I really have the ability and the knowledge to teach people how to be on camera?
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And look, and like Amy Porterfield and all those business,
Mhm.
like coaches will tell you, you just have to be 10% better than the person you're
10%.
teaching.
Yep.
10%.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm definitely 10% better than the guy who's showing me his ceiling and with the camera up his nose. Like, I am definitely 10% better than that. So that's the thing that, yeah, I don't know if it's specific to women. I think that imposter syndrome is just, I think it's in our DNA. I honestly do. But I also, because I say all the time, I'm like, my husband is a very confident man, and our kids are confident. I'm like, thank God they got this from you,
Yes.
because I don't think that was who I was before the last couple of years, honestly.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you found it. And I don't know how us women end up here, but I think you're so right. It is also
Mhm.
like the fear of judgment is a huge
Yeah.
one. So you're like, what are my coworkers going to think? For some reason, we don't trust the actual evidence that sits in the facts that sit in front of
Yeah.
us
Yeah.
that justify
If
why
we
we're
were
doing
given
it.
those facts, I taught a class. I use this example all the time. I taught a class at UC in media ethics, and there's one of the ethical like exercises to go through is the veil of invisibility, which means if you were to put a problem out there, right, and you're going to throw a veil over who the person is, would it be ethical or not? And the example they always use, and I'm by no means comparing these two, is slavery. Like,
Mhm.
if you were just to hear there is a person who is bound and owned by another human, would you call this ethical? If you don't know where you sit in that argument, you may be the slave, you may be the owner, whatever. That's the example that's given.
Yeah.
It's John Rawls theory. But in this case, it's if the veil of invisibility is thrown over a person who has been in business for her entire adult life, who is talking about the things that she has studied and worked in, giant companies for X number of years, would you consider that person an expert? If you didn't know it was you, would you consider that person an expert? And the answer would be yes.
That is the reframe that we all need to like. Let's all make that part of our morning routine. Catherine's gonna listen to her walk-on song, call her best friend, and
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm gonna put the veil over myself and be like,
There you
yeah,
go. Veil of
you're
invisibility. Didn't know
veil
that one was
invis.
coming up today. I pulled that one out of the recesses.
I'm here for it. I think honestly, I'm gonna turn that into a clip. It was, but that's so good. I think it's like it basically is like take away all those external
Yeah.
factors and all the noise and look at the
Yeah.
facts.
It's
Oh,
almost like a weird pro con list, right? So
yeah.
the whole idea of a pro con list is to take away the emotion and look at the fact. It's the same way with this.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That is such okay. Did everyone hear that? This is what we do. This is how we keep going because I know so many women out there. This is another reason why I started business coaching is that I've had like countless women come up to me and be like, I just had this idea. I'm so passionate
Mhm.
about it. And like we talk about it and they're ready and they're going to do it and they don't do it. And it just
Yeah,
is a knife to the heart. Cause I'm like, you don't have to do it 70 hours a week. You don't have to, you can do it,
yeah,
on the side. Like I only work 20 hours a week because I'm a single mom of four as much as I can and as highly
yeah,
profitably as I can. And I so believe in, I see this passion and these
yeah.
gifts in these women and I know what gets in the way. And that is another like mission that I'm on to be able to give people the tools through these kinds of conversations to be like putting the veil on, remembering who I am, and I'm going to go get it done.
I think you bring up a really good point, and one of the other things that I had said after, I left TV, I will never put all my eggs in one basket anymore. That side hustle, I will always have one. Always. I will always, always, always have one because if something should happen, you've got this other thing. And we all have another thing, right? So for me, it's the content creation, it's the camera coaching and that sort of thing. I've got all these other ideas in my head. I'm just trying to get out. And I think that that's all like we all have those things. And I feel like number one, it keeps us sharp because it uses our brain in different ways. And then also there's just an opportunity there that if something should fall through on one side, you got this other thing or extra money or just extra opportunity for creativity. Even if it
Yeah.
doesn't make you money, it gives you, you don't know the contacts you might get out of that. And again, I go back to, you just never know that how that networking world is going to come back for you, down the line.
I am literally obsessed with that. I could not agree more. And I always want women to have the confidence that they know how to make their own money. You don't need
Yeah.
to match your husband's salary. You could literally do it for an hour. But like you
Mhm.
said, you have tapped into creativity, you've tapped into a network, and you have the skills. Heaven forbid life happens in any way, shape, or form. What if your husband loses his job and you need
Right.
to contribute? What if, I don't know,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I'm divorced and my best friend is a widow. Life happens. Like,
Yeah.
and so
No,
I just
you're
think
exactly
it's,
right.
and also like having financial competency is truly so important to women's freedom and
That is the
power.
thing. I grew up with a mother who worked, and strangely, my dad ended up staying home for a little while or working from home, and that was just not a thing in the
Yeah.
'80s.
Yeah.
And so that was just it was never a consideration for me, and I love and applaud women who stay home.
Same.
Um,
Absolutely.
but I also want to make sure that my kids are in a situation where they can be financially solvent if they need to be, and if they
Yes.
want to be.
Yes.
I've got a great friend who um, I I know she wants to do is stay home with babies. I know that, and I love that for her. I love it. And I hope that it will work out for her. They're still in the process of working on the babies.
Yeah.
But I know that once that happens, that's what will happen. But I also know that she's got a life before, and she can go back to that life if she needs to. For that, whether it's extra money, like because let's be fair, that's a lot of it for
Yeah.
many of us. But also just that place to go to be around adults for a little while as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that my theory on all of that is whatever works for you. You know what I mean? You wanna sleep with your baby in the bed? Whatever works for you. You want your kid to have a pacifier till they're 6 years old? I don't care. Whatever works for you. You wanna stay home? Whatever works. And I think that we mentioned this off air. The competition factor among women, and among moms I think in the past was very like, "Oh, how long did you breastfeed?" And, "Oh, like,
Hmm.
your kid's going to preschool?" Like, those sorts of things. But now I think that we're much different. I think that our relationships are more like, "Hey, what does work for you? Maybe it'll work for me too." And I think that
Yes.
competition factor is not as severe.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Doesn't it feel, I really do feel like this slow seismic shift of women
Yeah,
going from that competitive factor to collaborating and being, and again, like the judgment slowly falling off.
yeah,
And it feels so good. I love that. What works for you? Just honestly, I'm
yeah,
always like, do you? Because
yeah.
we're all just out here doing our best. Like,
I know.
you know? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So we have talked about really like, how do you pivot? And
Mhm.
getting back to that intention of how you've made it for you. We've talked about you at your hardest moment. What does life feel like and look like for you now?
So, and it's interesting you call it the hardest moment. I remember right after I got fired, a great friend of mine called me and she's like, said something like, oh, something about the worst day of your life. And I thought, now listen, it's definitely top five, but like, is it the worst? I mean, I'd already been
True.
diagnosed with cancer, once. I'd had 2 miscarriages. Like,
Mm,
it's top 5, but
yeah.
I mean, in the moment, yeah, maybe it was the worst
Yeah.
because of what the ripple effect I thought might happen. But looking back on it, it really did suck at the time, don't get me wrong, but
I hear you.
to put it in perspective, I mean, I'd been through a fair amount until then and have since. And, I think that, my like the way I am is just like, okay, that happened. Let's move on. Let's go to this next thing. I'm a wallower for a minute. Like I give myself a wallowing time and then
Mhm.
I will move on.
Yes.
And I, I really wanted to look forward and not back. And that was really a
Yeah.
goal.
And I think that that is truly like that is such a key to success. Someone given me a piece of advice. They were like, if you feel like this like overwhelm of emotions, give yourself 20 minutes and just lose it. Just give
Yeah.
yourself 20 minutes and
Yeah.
then pull it together, girl, and keep moving forward.
My mom used to say, "Oh, sleep on it." And I remember thinking, "That's the stupidest thing." And I'm like, "You know what? I do feel better in the next day." And
I
just
do
because
too.
it's a little more perspective. You get a little
Yeah.
more perspective the further you get from something.
I know us girls who are big, bold achievers, we run hot. I got a lot of
Ugh,
feelings and a lot to say.
for sure. For sure.
I love that. But what I love seeing and feeling from you is that you are out there creating this life that is multifaceted, that is all
Yeah.
an extension of who you are. And you're just freaking crushing it out there. And
Oh, thank you.
you've been such a beautiful example for how to like pivot, pick up the pieces.
Well,
Let's do it.
and the I don't wanna say the end of this because I do hope that this is a continuation, but the interesting part of this is that the job I'm in now, you mentioned I'm the vice president of media at Game Day Communications,
Yep.
which is, a media marketing firm in Cincinnati. It's been around for 20 something years. I worked with, Betsy Ross and Jackie Rowe, who run the company, again, 25 years ago. And so
Wow.
and I have worked with them on the media side for many, many years with many of their clients. Then they brought me in doing so basically what I'm doing now is media relations. I get our clients on TV, on radio, I get their information, their stories out there. And I realized that what that does is it takes all the things that I've ever done, sports, news, been in traditional media, been in non-traditional media, been in a super traditional media with the Inquirer, in a weird platform on Facebook,
Yeah.
all of that knowledge I can now use, I always say for good and not evil, because I know how the sausage gets made in news. I
Hmm.
know where to go. Like I know these people need content and this is a great story. Oh, this reporter does money stories. Let me give them this. Like so my brain works newsy. And
Yeah.
so I can take the information given and disseminate it out and get our clients the coverage that they deserve, but by using all the things, like every job I've ever had has worked to this point, has gotten me to this point. If there's a through line, it's this, and it's just really interesting that I never saw it
Yeah.
until I was in it.
And how does it feel to be in it?
Oh, amazing. I probably still get questions, I'd say once a month. Hey, don't you want to go back to TV? I love my TV friends. I am in a TV newsroom once or twice a week with our clients who we have on doing interviews and
Hmm.
things like that. I love hanging out with those guys. They're some great folks and organizations doing some great journalism and fun journalism. And I think there's room for both, but I do not miss the day to day. I don't miss pouring myself into Spanx. I don't miss the 1:30 wake up call. There are times when you're like, you miss that rush of breaking news,
Totally.
but I'm okay being on this side of it. I'm
Yeah.
okay. Like I think I've done enough of that. And the world I live in now is somewhat hybrid where I'm at home sometimes, I'm in an office sometimes, I'm in a newsroom sometimes, I'm on a golf course sometimes. I don't even every day is different.
Yeah.
And that has been just a really incredible shift for me. And I feel like I'm exactly where I need to be now.
That is like truly the best feeling. And I can sense
Yeah.
every single bit of authenticity about that.
Yeah.
It's so, and isn't it so cool how the world works, how the universe works, however, whatever
I
you
know.
believe in, how it works. But here we
Yeah.
are, and it feels pretty great. Oh, that is so I'm so happy for you, but I mean, you
Oh,
did,
thank you.
I mean it, but you
Listen,
did
this
this.
is anybody like, I didn't do anything to like, I just let it happen, right? So I sought stuff out, don't get me wrong. I sought
Right.
it out and I
Right.
worked, angles, and I made sure that I had irons in many fires.
Hmm.
But it really I feel like leaving the chaos allowed a little bit of openness, and
Yeah.
again, it sounds very woo woo, I understand that,
I love woo
but
woo.
I just feel like I was open to new opportunities, and the
Hmm.
opportunities came. It's like, the second you're like, "Oh, I'd really like to make a little extra money doing this," funny how a project falls in your lap, and you're like, "Wait a minute," and so it's not like tit for tat, but I do feel like the if you surround yourself with positivity, with
Yeah.
people and places, and if you find that way, um, things will come to you, and eventually, I'm not, I know not everything is perfect, and there are hurdles along the way, but I do think that there is something to just letting the thing that you're supposed to do happen,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's where I am.
Oh, it's such a good feeling. There really is. I did not grow up religious at all, but through my all the twists and turns of life, I have found such comfort in
Mhm.
trusting that it'll all work out. I
Yeah,
have just,
yeah,
I, like you said, you put the intention out there, you continue to sort of move your ball forward, but in like that sort of, like you said, calm, collected, intentional way. And just sometimes you just have to let go of the reins and be like, you know what? It's all going to work out. It's all going to
yeah,
work
and
out.
I feel like we all have that thing that we're really good at. I'm not saying that
Hmm.
each one of us we're the best at something. No, but we're really good at something. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a new empty nester, as of, a month and a half ago,
Oh my
and
God.
my empty nesting hobby, like, this is weird. I am going to learn the French horn, and I'm gonna make costumes for my concrete goose. Is it weird? Yes, but I'm gonna
Yes.
use my weird creative brain to
Yes.
do these weird things because I feel like that's going to make, I don't know, my brain work better in some form or
Does it
fashion. So
make you
I'm so glad
happy?
Yes, that's
Then
it.
do
Like, I wanna
it.
make costumes for my goose.
Oh my
Like, that
God.
makes me happy.
Please put that on social. I
Oh, I
need
will.
live
Don't you fret, I'm
updates.
planning a Halloween costume right now, so
Oh my God. I need live updates of the goose and I need you playing the French horn in the background. Please, please, please.
the French horn may be a while, I gotta be honest, that's a difficult instrument, so I might, take a little while on that.
Well, you can document your journey. But
Sweet, yeah.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I love that you called it weird. I am so weird. I love to collect people who love weird. This is so
Yeah,
great.
I love weird. I tell my kids all the time, the thing that makes you weird is the thing that makes you cool, so,
Yeah.
yeah, don't lose it.
Don't ever lose it. Are you like me and taking at least an hour to plan your meals every week and then to grocery shop on top, only to find out that I throw away half of it because I didn't have it in me to season and chop and prep night after night? It's so embarrassing and I feel awful about it. Are you also like me and worry about if any of the things I buy are healthy enough for me and the family? Well, let me tell you about Hungry Root. Hungry Root is my partner for healthy living. Hungry Root helps me save time, save money. I shop sustainably, and I eat what makes me feel my absolute best. Their mission is to make it easier for more people to eat healthy and feel great every day. Some of my very favorite aspects of Hungry Root are healthy meals in 10 minutes or less. I mean it. No chopping, no seasoning ever. They do it all for you. Honestly, full stop. This is my very, very favorite thing. Every meal is so easy to put together. Often they have steamer bags for vegetables and all sorts of great microwave options too. They also give you healthy snacks and pantry supplies my kids and I both love. They're whole, trusted ingredients, which makes me feel like a great mom because I actually know that I'm putting good things in the pantry and in the fridge. Personalized recommendations based on your goals. Mine is heart healthy, and it ships to me on my schedule. The best part is also less food waste. No more throwing food out each week, which feels amazing. All you have to do is take their super simple quiz and share your preferences, goals, must haves, and they'll recommend a plan for you and just fill your fridge with food you love. You could be like me and let them surprise you with meals each week, or you can go in and adjust each week before they actually send it to you. And let me tell you, they love your feedback. This is the one thing I actually do. I'll go in there and I'll tell them to send me more of a certain meal or less of a certain snack because we didn't really care for it. One simple click and your order is adjusted. Hungry Root is so much more than a meal kit. They send full-size groceries, which is so much better cheaper than pre-portioned package you get with your meal kits. Honestly, couldn't be happier. Use your code Write Your Own Story 40 for 40% off your first delivery plus a free gift for life. Use code Write Your Own Story 40 or just click the link in the show notes for 40% off your first delivery plus a free gift for life. 40% off is huge. The free gift for life promotion is a choice of free cookie dough for life, free veggies for life, or free protein for life. For life means the length of your subscription. Honestly, guys, I love Hungry Roots so much. It saves my butt every single week, and I could not recommend it enough. Don't forget, use the code Write Your Own Story 40 or just click the link in the show notes. Okay. Again, wanting to be so mindful of your time because I know you've got another meeting coming up, but it is October and you are a
Yes.
two-time breast cancer
Yes,
survivor.
ma'am.
And I would love to just turn the floor over to you. If you want to tell your story, if you want to put a
Yes.
message out there, I'm here to support you.
Well, and so I had breast cancer twice, two different kinds,
Oh my gosh.
9 years apart. The first one, I was 38 years old and had no family history. And this is the thing that I want to get across to in October and every month.
Mhm.
We are often told, oh, you got to know your family history. You got to have the genetic testing, which I strongly suggest. The genetic testing these days is so incredible. Like when I had my first genetic testing in 2012, I think they tested for 30 things. Now it's 90 something. So like we are really learning, and this is cancers of all kind. And so I strongly suggest genetic testing.
Okay.
But genetic breast cancer only accounts for like 10% of breast cancers, like as far as family history goes, like the BRCA gene, those sorts of things. Yes, that's a whole different animal, and that's something for your doctor to discuss.
Okay.
But just because you don't have a family history of breast cancer doesn't mean you can't get it.
Yeah.
I had no family history. I was 38. I shouldn't have even had a mammogram according to most
Right.
doctors, but I talked my OBGYN into it because I felt like I needed to. And here we go back to the universe, right? I
Mhm.
felt like I needed to. And I got a baseline mammogram, no problem. I went back for my checkup, problem. And so the thing about that I'll tell you is many of us women, the majority of women have dense breasts,
Right.
especially young women.
Mhm.
I could feel my my tumor my first time. It was the size of a pencil eraser, could not be picked up on a mammogram because of
But
my
you
dense breast.
but you could feel it?
Right, so they did an ultrasound and they did all the things, and so they went through the rigmarole, don't get me wrong. They
Yeah.
did
No.
everything they could.
Yeah.
But my point is, you know your body,
Yeah.
and it is on us to do self-checks. It is
Mhm.
on us to do the yearly mammograms. I had a lumpectomy then and radiation. 9 years later, I ended up doing, I had it was in the same breast, but different cancer altogether. I always
Okay.
like to say 1 in 8 women get cancer. I got it twice, so 16 of you are very lucky. You're
Oh,
welcome for
goodness.
that.
Yeah.
But
Overachiever.
an overachiever in every way. And I joke about it only because both were caught extremely early. I went to St. Elizabeth. I can't say enough wonderful things about them. It's one of the
Mhm.
reasons I do the Getting Real with Kathrine
Yeah.
video series for them now. The great thing about it is I knew I had been checked every 6 months since
Mhm.
my first bout, and
Yeah.
so I knew the second time, even there we're sitting there in the room with a box of tissues, and when you're in a room with a box of tissues, it's never good.
I
My
hate that
husband and I are
room.
sitting there, and I'm like, okay. There were no tears. It was like, okay, well, he wasn't there 6 months ago, so I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
here we go. We're gonna
Yeah.
fix this.
We're so
I
early.
had a mastectomy and reconstruction. That is not for the faint of heart.
Gosh.
And people who say, "Well, at least you got new boobs,"
Yeah.
don't say that.
Don't say that.
Like,
Good.
don't say
Everyone
that.
write it down. Don't
Don't
say it.
don't say that. Is it true? Yes, but it is. Listen, it was an ordeal to go through. But nonetheless, what it taught me is number one, mammograms are important.
Yeah.
And now they have 3D mammograms.
Right.
Most women are eligible for them through their insurance. Please suggest those.
Yep.
If you have any questions, ask for an ultrasound, ask for a second opinion, do another mammogram. It can't hurt. It can't hurt. I had MRIs and mammograms every 6 months after I was diagnosed, and that's how I felt um, comfortable moving forward. And now, after the mastectomy, after the reconstruction, everything's a little bit different. But what I want people to know, and I serve on the board of the Karen Wellington Foundation, which um, sends people with breast cancer on wonderful trips and gives them treats and just puts fun back in their life. It's important to talk about it. it's important to tell your friends and neighbors and family members to talk about it and to get those mammograms. It's scary. Yeah, I understand that. It's a little bit painful for like 20 seconds, but
Right.
after that, you're good. You're good. And um, I know there are lots of people who don't want, like, they're like, I don't want to go because what if? Well, yes, what if?
Let's figure it
Um,
out. Yeah.
let's figure it out. Like putting it
Mm.
off is not going to help anything. So please get
Okay,
that
I have some follow-up questions because I don't know. Okay, so I know there's the regular or the regular scan and then there's
mammogram.
the 3D scan.
Right.
And I just went for mine and I think what they told me at Bethesda is that they're all 3D scans. Now, what is the difference between a 3D scan and an ultrasound? Is an
So an
ultrasound like
ultrasound is very specific. So like if they
okay.
find something, they might go in with the ultrasound to look at it more clearly.
Okay.
And so that's something that if there's a question, mammograms aren't going to catch everything. That's the thing. Like even
Right.
though this is a cancer we screen for yearly,
Mhm.
it's not going to catch everything. And again, we go back to the dense breast. That's why those self exams are so important. You notice a change. You can
Yeah.
notice a change. And that's when you can request either an ultrasound or again, the doctors and radiologists will recommend an
Yes.
ultrasound if something looks wrong. And listen, this is my personal experience. I am not a doctor. I'm
Right.
just a pretty experienced cancer patient. So, but please, every hospital organization in the city has a cancer center and folks who will talk to you, nurse navigators who will guide you through this. So ask those questions. And if you are like, what about this 3D thing? My hospital doesn't have it. Ask for it. Like
Yeah.
and it may cost you a little bit more, but I'll tell you, it's so much more powerful and so and can really find those cancers in especially in dense breast tissue
Yeah.
where a typical mammogram sometimes can't.
Well, and I know you're not a doctor and you've been through so much, but it's even just helpful to hear from just people who've gone through it, like all the different things, like just so you know different words to say and ask
Yeah.
for and to learn
Yeah.
more about. So like, I
Yeah,
think
and
this is
and
incredibly helpful.
well, and I know that there's some, insurance companies and some,
Mhm.
doctors even who have said, "Oh, you don't need a mammogram until 50." Every
Oh,
single cancer doctor I've talked to was like, "No, no, no.
yeah.
Please, let's come earlier." And so that's
Yeah.
why and listen, I am the pot calling the kettle black here, but, I have an oncologist, I have a breast surgeon, and I have, a plastic surgeon, all those things,
Yeah.
and I'm terrible about going to a family doctor. So I
I
understand
get
that,
it.
we all have our things, but, finding that person that you can trust and just go and have these conversations with, they'll answer these questions, and, they're so knowledgeable, and things are moving so rapidly in that world and research and just technology that what's good today may be something completely different in 6 months and it's working for good and so I
Yeah,
look
and let's
forward to
take advantage of that, right?
yeah
That there continue
yeah
to be more resources and more options and more things to learn. Like when I think about genetic testing, is that an initial conversation? Is your advice to just kind of ask any doctor that you're comfortable with? Do you start with your primary care? Do you go to your OB?
That's a great question. With genetic testing, many times insurance will cover it on a recommendation from your primary care physician
Okay.
because it does so much for prevention.
Yeah.
Even the first time I had cancer, there was a test that I took that it's called an oncotype test that says, is your I took it both times actually, is your cancer receptive to chemotherapy? Back in the day, there's like everybody gets chemo,
Yeah.
but now it's like my score was low on this type of cancer that both times that I had. So they're like, we're not going to do chemotherapy. It's not
Effective.
going to be it doesn't register as being effective. So
Yeah.
I did radiation the first time and then the mastectomy the second time. But yeah, there are tests out there that insurance will cover that can not only prevent things from happening but find out if there's a possibility down the line that something has happened. I have a friend who her mother did genetic testing. She had cancer, did genetic testing, had a thyroid, elevated thyroid, something genetic issue. So the daughter's like, oh, that's interesting. Let me check it out. Turns out she not only had that gene, she had cancer and had no symptoms, thyroid cancer, had it removed. Everybody's fine. But had the mom not done the genetic testing, the daughter wouldn't have done the genetic testing and wouldn't have known that.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of like, let's look, it kind of goes back to the whole pivot discussion. Let's look forward. Let's look ahead.
Yeah.
Let's see what's
Yeah.
down the line and hopefully keep people safe.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I can't imagine that is easy to talk about, but I feel already like I have well wider range of knowledge just from that conversation. So I
Oh,
really
good. Good, good, good.
so genuinely appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, I know we're getting close to the top of the hour. So my last question for you is, what do you wish women talked more openly about?
This is gonna be very specific,
I love
but
it.
back
Let's
to
do
my
it.
we're gonna it's a call back to the first thing I talked about was talking to my friend every morning. So my friend Tasha is a photographer, and, she and I talk all the time about what things should cost, I think, or what we should charge.
Yeah.
I feel like as female business owners, we keep those and business owners in general, we keep that information close to the vest. Like, I shouldn't ask, and this goes back to imposter syndrome. How much should I charge for X? Well, I don't know. Oh, that's too much. I'm not worth that. And then in talking it out, you're like, well, wait a minute. We hear attorneys charging, $200 an hour for their expertise. Why is my expertise worth less than that? And maybe it's worth less than $200 an hour, but the point is there. And I feel like I remember when talking to several people in business, someone told me, whatever you're charging, charge more. Whatever you're charging, charge more. Because you're like, that can't be. And then you charge more and somebody takes it and you're like, oh my gosh, look at that. And so I feel like the conversation of what we're worth, and it can be a dollar amount or just what we're worth in general, it needs to be more of a conversation with women because I feel like that's something that just is so secretive. No one wants to talk about money. No one wants to, it's gauche. Yes, sometimes you got to talk about it because
Right.
one of the reasons that this has come up for me multiple times is there was an accidental moment back in my old life that I found out I was making less than my male counterpart. And it was remedied. But if I hadn't found that out, I wonder if it had. And so I feel like the conversation needs to happen and we need to talk about all of these things, what we make, what we deserve, what we're worth, because I think it's better for everybody.
God, I love that. I think so often we forget. Yes, there is a dollar amount behind your expertise and behind your
Yeah,
time. It is not just materials and output.
that's
It is
right.
the time, energy, and knowledge that sits within you that is invaluable. That's the 10% that we were talking about as
Yeah,
well. That 10% is gold. So
that's
charge
exactly
for it.
right. Yeah.
And to your point of sitting in these corporate roles or, within other businesses, talk about it, normalize it, get in there and
Yes.
ask for more because you are worth it. Hell
Yes.
yeah. I love this. Thank you for
Ask for
saying,
more.
yes,
My
ask
boss
for,
always says add a zero. I'm like, I don't know about a zero, but
ooh, don't mind if I do. Oh, I love this so much. Oh, Kathrine, this has been, I honestly, I could talk to you for hours. I wish I could,
oh, this
but
has been wonderful.
yeah, I will not let you go far. But, in terms of everyone, please, 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 please share this episode for so many reasons. Please go out and get your mammogram, talk to your doctor, ask the questions, get the screening, know your worth, embrace your pivots, and just go out there and give your gifts to the world and find some joy in it because you will come out so much better. Oh,
The truer words were never spoken. That's perfect.
well, thank you. This is truly just a culmination of hearing your story and all the great experience that you have to share with everyone. You guys also seriously go follow Kathrine on social because not only
Oh,
do we
thank
want to
you.
see what her goose is going to wear, but but legit,
Now I've
but
said it out loud. I got to do it. So
yeah,
I'm on
right.
it. I'm on
I
it.
know. I'm holding you accountable. I'm going to DM you when it gets close to Halloween and be like,
That's right. It's happening. It's
I love
happening.
it. But truly, your content is top notch, as well as I just love all watching you do all the things that you do within this city. And
Oh,
you're
thank
such a great
you.
example of just taking all this great energy that you've got and putting it out there. And it's, such a good, great example and a great follow, truly incredibly entertaining.
I appreciate that. This has been wonderful.
All right, you guys. Kathrine, what a gift. Thank you so much. Good luck with the rest of your day. And you guys, thank you everyone for listening. And we'll catch you next time. Well, that's the end of this episode, but promise me, you won't stop here with whatever it is you're feeling or dreaming about. I hope you leave today feeling empowered to live life just as you see fit. If this podcast was helpful to you, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. I genuinely just want to help women live the life they dream about. So if this type of content tracks with you, subscribe to this podcast or visit our website, writeyourownsstory.co, to download digital courses or to grab a journal and a mug to just dream in and dream with. It's your life, lady. Do you. And just remember, I'm rooting for you and you've totally got this.